Yeah, she's there.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Hi, Howard. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Leslie.
Well, we have a quorum, so we can start. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we're going to not go by our agenda at the moment, and the Land Council for clear applicants is going to speak to us.
Yes.
Basically, for what you did with the planning board last night.
Yes, we greatly appreciate your hospitality. My name is Jennifer Van Tile, and this is Amy Detain. Amy is the planner and engineering environmental firm representative for Tim Clear, and I am his land use counsel. And we appreciate your spontaneous hospitality, but this matter was,
You had that already.
we made the same presentation that we're going to make to you tonight to the planning board last night, and we wanted you to be able to ask us any questions and have the same documents that the planning board has. So they're officially referring it to you.
Yes.
So we're going to make sure that you have all the handouts that were given to the planning board, et cetera.
Yep.
Howard and I had a brief conversation last night, but they threw us out of the room because they were on to the next.
So you were Jennifer?
Yes, I'm not Jennifer, yes. As opposed to Jennifer, the secretary of.
I know, it's getting a little
There's a lot
confusing.
of Jennifers.
And Amy, where is your name written in?
It's not on those ones. I work under Ken Testamento at LRC Group.
So you'll see LRC.
Oh, yeah, the LRC,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you remember, there is a requirement under the code that if an application meets certain cluster preference criteria, a land inventory report has to be done. And when the planning board receives that report, the application and the land inventory report have to be referred to you.
Yes.
And so the materials that we're submitting to you, as well as the application, includes the land inventory. And it also includes an analysis of the new natural resource inventory, because we thought that would be very helpful.
Yes.
So we thought we'd start tonight first with the presentation that we made last night to the planning board about the property. Amy will do that. And then I'll speak a little bit to the cluster preference criteria.
Sure.
And I don't think this application wasn't referred to you previously, right? I think that.
No.
Okay, so that application was withdrawn. So I just
Correct.
want to make clear this is a new application.
Right. So as Jennifer said, this is a new application. Timothy and Joanna Clear are looking to subdivide their 90.87 acre parcel into 5 smaller parcels, the smallest being 5.349 acres, and then the others are between 10 and 28 and change. They're really looking at the environmental concerns that you guys had. Obviously, there's many wetlands on this property, and we've asked our wetland biologist, Michael Fishman. He's done a delineation of all the wetlands and a habitat and biodiversity study. And then from that, we came up with these building envelopes that are outside of, there are some steep slopes within them, but we just wanted to show that, we're outside of the buffers, and this, the way the layout is appropriate. Also,
So the building envelopes are the green areas?
The blue.
The green are the wetlands.
Those are wetlands.
And then these pink lines are the wetland buffers, and it's depending on the size, either 50 or 100 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
And-
So the building envelopes are the blue.
The
Yeah.
blue ones,
The blue. And then these are the approximate.
Yeah.
locations.
And just to confirm, I don't see a blue on the bottom left. Is that correct?
Right, so this is one of the.
It's because it's existing
It's got an
homes.
existing
Yeah.
home as well, this one's got the
Yeah.
farmhouse,
Yeah.
and that one we'll kind of group together all the previously used,
Yeah.
farming.
Yeah.
Amy, can you just outline where the building envelope is on lot 2, just so you
Yeah.
can see that?
Yeah, it's a little.
It's a little hard to see.
Yeah, and this one, the driveway will be from Stanford Road, the
Yep.
other ones will be from.
From
Woodstock Road.
Woodstock, yeah.
But you each have a handout of this,
Yeah.
so you can
Which is-
see
which
it
is
clear,
very
yeah.
clear.
It's easier to see on this handout, yeah.
So what we also wanted to do, and, Tim's desire with breaking up the property this way was kind of following the natural boundaries, this one, it follows an existing stone wall, and, I believe there is one up here as well.
Mhm.
And, we wanted to show that breaking it up this way really does fit within the surrounding, similar sized parcels are surrounding. Even the smaller one is a 7.5 acre one over here next to the 5 acre one.
Mhm.
So that was really our goal, is to look at really closely at the environmental concerns and, come up with an appropriate plan.
Okay.
And you need to see this as well.
Question?
Yeah.
Are those the same parcel lines pretty much as the first one?
It's similar, as the previous application, but not exactly the same.
Not exactly, it's basically the same lines they drew first set modifications.
Correct. Yep.
Again, I think they're similar because they were designed to follow where the stone walls are, et cetera, so that's the same, but there are some modifications.
They look similar, that was my question.
Yeah.
Right. That's.
Do you want to go over the constraints map now, or?
Sure.
This just shows the technical work that was done to get to the map on the aerial.
Uh-huh.
So it's the same data in the
Right,
different color.
so as you can see, many wetlands. The steep slopes are outlined 20 to 25 and then 25 above. It's 2 different colors. And also the agricultural soils, which is actually mostly taken up by wetlands and the existing farming structures.
Yeah, Amy, could you just outline where the agricultural soils are, because it's,
Yeah, so,
and it's very interesting that the original farmhouse complex was put in the agricultural soils, and then of the field that's south of Woodstock Road, that kind of soil is called prime if drained,
right.
and much of that, both at the north and at the south, is actually wetland. So you can see that the constraints map is what led to locating building envelopes that were outside all of those things, and that indicated an area where the homes would be located with driveways to reach the road. And it was designed so that there would only be 2 new driveways on Woodstock Road, which, as you know, is a scenic road. One on the western part of the property for lot 1, and the other opposite one of the existing driveways that goes to the farm complex on the east side.
Yes.
And again, I think you can see when you look at the map, because of topography close to Stanford Road and the existing vegetation, we don't think that there will be any adverse impacts visually or scenically. We also brought for you tonight a map that was not discussed last night at the planning board, but we are going to give it to them for next month. This is from the hospitality study, although it's also reproduced in the comp plan update of 2023. And it shows you where the scenic views are on scenic roads, and the bright orange is the view. So maybe I should I can leave some more of these for the other members. Would that be good?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the idea of the subdivision lines is that that entire view south is outside the building envelopes.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people had expressed great concerns about, is maintaining that view of the main field.
Right.
So do you have any questions about the layout or the
It's relatively straightforward for
the
me.
features? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the application. I'm
Yeah,
not cutting you short at
No,
all. If
exactly.
you want us back to answer questions,
Well, and we have your email
Yeah.
address.
yes.
And
So we can reach out to you.
So would you be the point of contact or should
Or
I-
Amy.
Either one of
Yeah.
us, you should have Amy's email. Why don't we give it to you
Did
right
you
now?
did you copy Amy tonight when you emailed me?
I don't think.
I
so.
forgot to. I
Okay,
intended to.
because I didn't actually. I just luckily looked at my emails, so I didn't have a chance to look at if you had copied anyone.
Do you have cards or something, Amy? Or
She's
something?
pulling them out. Thank you so
That's
much.
very
No
good.
problem.
That's perfect.
So yeah, we're all available. Everybody on
Yeah.
the team is available, and we're happy to come back before you anytime or answer questions in between meetings. So
Yeah, I think answering questions in between meetings as we put together our comments, we have questions.
Yeah.
would be really
that's fine, and
helpful.
we'll try to get back to you really fast, because I know the code provides a rather short period for you responding back, and that's why we wanted to come here tonight to make sure you had
Oh,
the
Yeah.
same handouts.
Yeah.
That, but
yeah,
you will be
it's perfect.
getting both an email, digital copy of the full application,
Yes.
as well as at
And we have a hard
least
copy that
main
that we
copy.
can review as well.
Okay.
Susan gave me her hard copy, and she's going to get another one.
But a digital.
Digital is fine.
That'll be fine.
It's easier to read on the big, because like the big map and stuff, it is actually easier to read. But
Yeah.
we can pass that around for anyone that wants it.
All right. So maybe what I'll do now is just give you a quick summary of the open space report, and then happy to answer any questions that you have. The main decision that is to be made rather early on in a subdivision application where you have some of these features like wetlands, steep slopes, et cetera, is whether to proceed with a conventional subdivision or to require development of a cluster subdivision. And that is the purpose that the application has been referred to you. The actual referral says for you to take the plan that we've developed and comment on the extent to which it fulfills the open space goals of preserving open space, staying away from resources, et cetera. But implicitly, there's a recommendation that the whole section is about the decision of whether the planning board should require a cluster or proceed with a conventional subdivision. And I say at the outset, there's nothing in a conventional subdivision that requires that there be building envelopes, right? We have added that. We proposed that, and we're willing to have that be a condition of our approval. And the reason we did that is that we think that's an essential element of fulfilling the open space goals. And we think that does it in a better way than a cluster would, primarily because cluster has a lot of unintended consequences, or it has certain requirements which we don't think is appropriate right here. It could be appropriate somewhere else. And they are basically that this parcel is in the ag overlay, the APO. And if that's the case, if a cluster subdivision is developed, the houses have to be grouped. And you see, the point of ours is to nestle them within lots that are the same size as the neighbors' lots.
Right.
So it's much more compatible with what's around it while it's still keeping space open, as most of the neighbors have kept their space open, other than the ones that are actually used for the horse farms, et cetera. Secondly, a cluster in the APO requires that the lots be small. They can't be anything more than an acre in the RL5.
Yep.
And again, we think that that's really inconsistent with the size of lots that are out there, particularly on a scenic road. Because if we group them, it would be a lot more driveways on the scenic road if we tried to group them there. Cluster lots, the houses only have to be 60 feet from each other. And that again, it cluster, not on purpose, I don't think, but it ends up requiring a very high net density. In other words, you really put the houses together to keep a lot of open space. Now, there could be situations where that's the perfect thing to do, but this isn't a 1,000-acre parcel. It's not a 500-acre parcel. It's relatively small. The frontage is 150 feet as opposed to the 300 in the RL5. So we just think that without adversely commenting on cluster as a whole, it could be perfectly appropriate in other situations. We think that the layout that we've proposed, which is not just any old conventional subdivision, but one that's controlled and one that has been developed with use of environmental consultants, et cetera, is one that has the spirit of cluster and a conservation-minded subdivision that's in keeping with the way the lots are around it. Now, the details of the building envelopes need to be fleshed out. There will undoubtedly be notes on the subdivision plat. There will likely be a legal document that says exactly what can be done in the envelopes, what, if anything, could be done outside the envelopes. Cluster subdivisions allow the well and septic to be placed outside the lots. And we may be proposing to locate well or septic outside the building envelope if that's the best soils, right? There has to be an analysis. Although these lots are more than 5 acres each. And so at this point, it's a permission to file. It's not an actual subdivision that needs approval of each system. And there was some discussion last night of, there was mixed feeling on the planning board as to the building envelope concept, but the applicant has proposed it, and we're happy to stick with it. We are proposing it. And we take the view that building envelopes aren't an unusual thing. They're a good tool to have in the toolbox, right? Because maybe cluster doesn't work for everything. So that's the basic thinking behind it. And there's also a section in the report, the open space report, that addresses the standards for deciding whether there's a cluster. And one of them is whether it provides long-term protection for the resources, and we think that our subdivision does that. The second is
How does your subdivision do that?
by the building envelopes, that we're controlling where things are being placed. And furthermore, we didn't just go with the town wetland map. We had a very reputable consultant.
Thank you. Sorry, town.
Go out into the field and delineate the wetlands. And the planning board commented last night that we have many more wetlands on our map than the town has on its map. So
Because it's an old wetlands map as well that we haven't updated. So
well,
We also,
so
that's the NRI.
yeah, because it was the NRI that we just did so that we could change our wetland map to
Right.
be more up to date to what we actually have out there.
right, and our consultant, Michael Fishman, he may be known to you. He's a very good wetland biologist, and he's going to be here. We plan on having him here for the planning board hearing, but if you, for any reason, want to speak with him, we might be able to have him join by Zoom or be here in person. We're going to try to do one or the other, but we are sincere in saying that we are avoiding all of these wetlands, as well as protecting the scenic view.
Right, right.
Um,
And I think with the state's new mapping, everyone else kind of has to use the new mapping, even though
Right.
our mapping might be
Right,
a little older in some circumstances, they can't get around it when they now do their work. And yours, like, those are the maps you use now, right? The new updated state maps.
well, yeah, and those
Because
aren't
it's
even
all-
published yet.
No, it's all on
Cornell
the,
is preparing them
correct.
now.
It's all online, the new stuff. So that is what
Right.
everyone has to use now. So, thankfully everyone has done that with the new information as opposed to our old information.
Right, because we knew our review was going to cross the line.
Yeah.
And actually, even if you go to DEC now to ask them for a statement of non-jurisdiction, because we're not going to bother to do that because the ones they're giving say this expires on December 31st.
Right,
So,
exactly.
So, but look, let's be realistic, right?
Correct.
There's new maps and that's
Yeah.
the story.
And
So
that's awesome. Thank you.
So the second test of whether a cluster should be required is which type of subdivision would provide more compatibility with the surrounding land uses. And we think on that, the conventional plan with the cluster is much more appropriate. And in addition to the map that Amy showed with the size of the lots, the report that each of you have includes this map. And it's just another way of looking at it. You see the topo, but you can see here that this lot is 5 acres, this lot is 7, how they just match.
Yeah.
We didn't intend, matching wasn't the whole purpose of the
Right.
layout, but it fits. Whereas small little lots,
Right.
where would we put them? And if we
Yeah.
didn't put them on the scenic road, we would have to build a new road, and that has its own
Correct. Yeah.
consequence. So the third test is, does the proposed subdivision provide adequate setbacks and visual buffers from adjoining properties? And again, we believe the building envelopes show that, and we also have data in our application that shows what the nature of the space is.
Mhm.
Vis-a-vis COX, we have lots of evergreens and lots of deciduous trees. So
Mhm.
there's blocking in all seasons. Between lot 2, which is the only house that will have access on Stanford Road, between that and the original farmhouse, there's correct me, Amy, it's something like 400 feet separation or 300.
Oh, yeah, somewhere, yeah.
But, and lots of topo. And similarly, vis-a-vis Van Buren, there's a distance, but there's topo and knolls in the land, et cetera. So it's some, you can see some houses from other houses, but at a distance. So we think that the conventional subdivision is better on that. And then could the cluster contribute to town-wide open space by creating permanently preserved open spaces all around it? So you have linkage, let's say for public trails, for conserved open space, et cetera. But there really isn't a substantial amount of conserved land or open space land right around this. There is the Van Buren piece has a conservation easement on it, and some of the Orvis land has a conservation easement on it, but we're not in the middle of country of huge estates where you could get a trail system. Similarly, the last one I think is, yes, does the subdivision border ag lands? And does it preserve land suitable for agriculture? Could cluster more effectively preserve land for agriculture on the property? Well, there's, again, the maps are in your land inventory maps, et cetera, that show that surrounding this, it's really not good ag soil. There have been farms, but they're mainly horse farms or livestock farms that aren't the situation of having irreplaceable soil types.
Question, when you're on soil, some of that mismatch, is there a map in there that shows the different types of soil, but by soil classification?
Yes, I think that one does.
Shows soil types.
Yeah.
So these two soils are these two large spots and this one small spot.
Do they have the soil name? Like
It has
Yes.
the abbreviation of them, but I believe in the
It's-
reports.
it's in
got,
your
like,
report.
the-
Yes.
Yeah,
It
it
says
shows,
SU.
yeah, it
is-
shows it in the full
and-
report.
Yeah, they are listed and described in the
Yes.
reports. We also include the web soil page of the property and
Yeah.
500 feet
In the
around it.
report.
And I think we have a map that goes even further than the
Yeah,
500
I-
feet that shows
Yeah.
it's not areas of land that is the high quality, and again, on our site, much of it is wet. And some of it has already been appropriated mainly for residential uses. Now, we'll just comment, it's not directly a natural resources issue, but we know that some questions have been raised about the historic, the house, the farmhouse,
Mhm.
and that was discussed last night. We have, I don't know whether it's 400 pictures of the state of that building.
Right.
And we do have we have referred this to SHPO. The online mapper reports that this is not eligible for state or national historic register. But it is an old house, but it is in, I'll say it subtly by saying it's in a state of disrepair.
So what I'm getting at, I'm slow, so just bear with me.
No, happy to answer any questions.
There are maps that show the soil types, the letters on them, and they're just soil type maps. And some of these letters then have a way of calculating based on slope and other things, what type of septic you can put in, how reasonable septic systems have to be.
Oh, you need the classification, like.
Yeah, based on the soil.
Yeah.
And based on the open areas.
Mhm.
And sometimes you find places that are just almost unbuildable because the soil requires a huge amount of setback to put in a septic system. And I was wondering if there's anything like that in your report. I couldn't find it. I don't look that carefully, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
So in the NRI analysis, there is a map that you guys have, that discusses soil classification, and we commented on that of how it is on this site. Any type of septic system, you would have to do soil testing and show that wherever we're proposing to put it, this is the best place to put it.
All right, so you have that someplace, or you don't have that someplace
It's in
that you base your location, where you drew the lines on the type of soil in terms of septic and drainage and hydric soils and so on?
well,
Is that in there somewhere?
let me say that one basic principle is that if a lot is larger than 5 acres,
Yeah.
the County Department of Health has determined that they conclude that somewhere on that 5 acres, you can locate a septic system that will comply with all applicable standards of the Department of Health. And that's why they give you a permission to file, it's not an approval. So that it's the person who purchases the lot, designs the system, and has it approved as a precondition to getting a building permit. We have engineers working on this project and who have made the conclusion that whatever the soil type, a proper septic system can be located on a 5-acre lot without encroaching on any wetlands or wetland buffers, because it's possible to use fill systems. You know, it may be necessary to bring in soils, but on a site like this, it can be done without any visual disfigurement to the land. And so we don't think that there's any question about that. There is a discussion of soils and classifications of soils, and you have a report in your in the NRI, I think, that talks about certain type of soils, but that is assuming that you're going to have a system on the soil itself rather than using a fill system, which is a very common thing to do. It does not have any adverse habitat impacts, et cetera, because it's underground and restores the surface to what it was and would only be done outside of what the buffers are. But if you have any questions about that, Ken, the engineer that was here last night presenting, he wasn't able to come tonight, but he would be the one to address that. And we will look into that comment and get a specific response.
But it's not mapped, so I get at the moment.
No, the soils, the
soils
types
are
of soils on our site are mapped.
But
They're shown there, and there's a separate,
I guess what I'm getting at, if you drew the parcel lines a different way, maybe some of that problem might be mitigated more.
it really wouldn't, because overall there's, I think it's one basic soil type plus the two agricultures, right?
So NWC, NWD, that's NWC. The agricultural soils, so that's two different types. So I believe there's 5 altogether.
So what are the non-ag soil types?
The NWC is a non-ag soil. The NWD is a non-ag soil, and then the other ones are
What's the W?
water.
Just water, okay.
So I'm sorry, I believe that's 4. And that's all in the land inventory report. It's broken down and it shows like what percentage of each type takes up this property.
Okay, any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay,
Not now.
yeah, okay, so
There might be 101 later.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's okay, and we're happy to respond to them. But just to finish up on the historic house, or the house that's the original
The
farmhouse.
existing, yeah.
I think you can see it used to be blue, it's now yellow. It's had a lot of additions that are not historically sympathetic. It's had internal alterations that are not in keeping. The reason that Tim designed this lot, and that lot is a slightly different shape than it was originally, because Tim ultimately decided that he wanted to keep the original farmstead together, all of the buildings together. And he made the lot the smallest of all because he believes that someone will want to buy this house who wants to put a lot of money into restoring the historic house, but doesn't want the burden of having 90 acres or 50 acres of land to take care of. So that's the intention there. Again, our conclusion from our investigation to date is that this is not eligible for listing on the state or national register, and that's what's been reported back to us. We have nonetheless, though, on our EAF indicated the Dutchess County, not a nomination, but a green sheet filled out about it that suggested it, which never went anywhere. But we're mindful of wanting to keep older houses in the community if they can possibly. So with that, if you don't have any questions, we don't want to take any more of your time, but wanted to make sure that you had everything that the
No,
planning
thank you
board
so
had.
much. We really appreciate
Very
you
much appreciated.
coming on the spur of the moment.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't see your email earlier,
That's okay.
but I guess it was enough time.
Thank you for the offer for cookies.
Oh, you're
Yes,
welcome. And-
right.
And you know, they are in little bags to go.
Maybe I'll bring one for my husband. He'll be so happy because I never bake. Thank you.
You're
And do you
welcome.
do this at every meeting because we might become
much.
regulars?
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you so much for your time.
You get paid in
Thank
cookies
you.
here. Thank you very much.
Do I? Is this? I have someone else's file.
Oh, like you picked it up off the table.
Oh, here it is.
Did I? This is something about, I think I put my maps back in here.
It's the ethics.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
That's your file,
thank
not
goodness you
mine.
didn't take that one away from us. We need
Yeah, I
that
must have
one.
just picked this up off the table. I'm sorry.
So this one is.
Yours.
That one is
Okay.
yours.
Okay, great. I don't have any of my stuff left in there, do I? No, because I knew this was a little file. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, so we'll go to old business now, which is relatively simple. Since we have to approve the minutes from July 3rd meeting,
Yep.
and we had no comments back from any CAC members. There was nothing to adjust.
So motion to approve. I make a motion to approve.
Pam, motion. Howard seconds.
Oh, yes.
All in favor? Aye. So approved. And we, next on old business was the wetlands application letter, but we did not need to do that.
Oh, it hasn't been sent out.
No.
As far as concern.
Yeah.
So so the planning board referred it to us for comment.
Right.
We drafted the comment letter. There weren't any comments on our comment letter, but it hasn't been sent.
Right. So,
So this is the one on.
Oh, the, 70, so about it.
Ibanez.
Ibanez.
211 Hammond Hill Road.
This time, real.
It's this one, this letter right here.
I mean, I'm sorry. It's on my agenda.
On the last meeting, I missed it. I imagine it's not on the planning board agenda.
But it was in July.
Yeah, it wasn't,
Yeah, but
it was the full one, yeah.
And they referred, the planning board referred it to us, referred the application to us for comment. And so it was clear from the planning board meeting that the individual was going to come back with, or at least the planning board advised the individual to come back with a revised application. So maybe the revised application hasn't been sent. But in the meantime, we have the outstanding request from the planning board. So I'm not really sure if we should send the letter or not.
all I'm saying is that they were not on the agenda for August yesterday. That's all.
Right. Right.
So that was what was gonna happen. That's the one where they're going, about correct 40% into the wetland buffer. That's the one.
40 feet, yeah.
Well, they,
Do we think that, that since it seems like they're kind of presenting their reasoning, that maybe you wait to see when they come back with the final, or you could do both. I just wouldn't want you to do it twice.
I know, I know that's, so that's the dilemma. We don't want to, we also don't want to make comments that turn out to be irrelevant.
Right.
But at the same time, the planning board did refer it to us in writing. So we're sort of,
Right, I see, yeah.
so we don't want to waive our rights to comment. On the other hand, the comment letter may not be.
Maybe irrelevant.
May be irrelevant. So I'm not sure what to do next.
I know, because they weren't on, so we don't know, because they have themselves wanted to readjust or make a different
Maybe
comment.
they do, maybe they don't.
Don't, so we're kind of hung right there.
Yeah. Well, it's also, the other option is Howard or whoever's the kind of CAC rep at the planning board meeting, their next meeting. If you don't want to go, if you all kind of agree on sort of talking points or impressions, you could always say, based on what they presented, this was our reaction and we're waiting for a formal application.
That's
They
what
might
we
want direction before they even come back. I'm just very confused. I missed the planning board meeting last night, but confused by this cluster subdivision. We don't have any cluster subdivision. What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure.
In our code.
Yeah.
Do we?
The one that goes by the Hunt Club there on 6th and 8th Road at the moment. think there was one there years ago on, well, the one that goes up to where the Fox Hunt Club is, what's that one called? Of 82. Can't think of the name of the road at the moment, but I think there's a cluster subdivision on that one. So I think there is one at 10.
82.
We go down to 44 there.
Yeah,
There's a road that goes up to where the Fox Hunt people are.
Kennel Road?
Kennel Hill Road. I think at the bottom of that one, there's a cluster subdivision. I'd have to look it up, so I'm not gonna say there is.
No, I've never seen,
It's one big parcel
but it's a cluster.
There's a bunch of little houses on the bottom there, and then there's this huge open space property that goes all the way up to the top of the hill there.
Don't get too close. I don't see cluster housing on Kennels Road.
Unless you mean just that there's that brick house and then,
Yeah, the brick house.
and then the Schwartz's, but I think that was, the Schwartz's was part of the barn. Maybe the brick house had the
Yeah,
acre to build there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember there being any cluster housing over there. Yeah,
That's all, because
No,
everything past that house is open space. There's nothing on that road past that little set of houses on the beginning when you come in, until you get to the top where the Fox Hunt people are. Is that what you see on the map? You see the same thing I'm saying?
I'm trying to make it bigger again, but there's no cluster housing over there.
Yeah, certainly there are a few little houses.
That's a corner.
And then if you keep
Yeah.
going towards the kennels, there's another couple smaller houses,
They're all,
but they're just, there's not a, it's
It's a huge amount of open space up there.
Mhm. That's right.
I used to walk my dog there occasionally, so I know what it looks like roughly.
yeah, no, I don't think there's cluster housing there.
You don't think so? All
No,
right.
I do not believe that's cluster housing.
So next question, is there anybody in the town who would know if there's any cluster housing then? Planning department, perhaps, that's planning department, the assessor's office.
Yeah, we could ask Lisa, but
Wouldn't it show up on our existing zoning map?
it would show up, and I don't, there is none
So,
to my
so all
knowledge.
we need to do is go back and take a look at our zoning map to see if
Yeah.
if there's anything that's designated.
Yeah, I don't think there's
Okay.
anything designated cluster zoning in our town. You know, it's a part of the subdivision wording, but I don't think we have any. The same as mobile home is in our zoning, but we don't have any of those either. Any mobile home zones.
Okay.
I think it's just
It's,
worded.
it's what cluster zoning, if I recall, is one of those subjects that we need to talk about in more detail as part of a code review. That's on that list of substantive discussions, because that's my recollection anyway.
Yeah, I think it's in our, you know, the subdivision law, but I
Oh,
don't.
sure it is.
But it's not-
There are lots of things in our zoning. code
Correct, but
that-
there's not, it was only there for edification more than actual
Or
legitimate use.
there's never been a reason to use it before.
Correct. They just had it there. I don't think it's there. We can double check. We will double check.
Yeah.
We will double check.
I went to some training sessions a while back, not recently, but a while back, and then they were on cluster housing, and they made several good points for it, and it was widely attended. It is a useful tool. No, it's a useful tool, and
Only if you
And
want to
there's no
live next
reason
to
why we
someone
can't
else.
Look at that, I know what they want.
In the right circumstances.
No, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Somewhere else. Just kidding, I'm kidding, of course, I'm kidding.
So.
I think that was part of the discussion, right? We have 5-acre and 10-acre zoning and 1-acre zoning for a reason, and because I remember there was a cluster zoning discussion around the Johnson subdivision, and the discussion there was if you're buying a 100-acre parcel or a 10-acre, you want to be away from your neighbor, right? I mean, presumably.
Nobody wants to live at Silo Ridge in Millbrook.
Right. So I think that's but I understand,
I know.
with Hitchcock, I don't know what's going to happen with Hitchcock. I understand, and I'm speaking without understanding the full zoning of that property. I think part of it's in the village, part of it's in the town. I don't know what's RR 10 and RR 5 and all of that, but I don't know. There might be arguments at some point about it's better for the environment to have houses closer together. Do you know that? So you have more open space around, but I don't know.
The argument of the training session was, depending on the circumstances, of course, is that you give up a little bit of space here, but then you preserve a huge amount of open space
larger space
elsewhere
somewhere else,
on the
yeah.
property.
Yeah.
And so the environment is preserved still. If you have something to happen to that property one way or another, then you're going to change. And this might be one way, looking at it carefully, of course, of preserving a huge amount of the environment still and giving up a small section somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah,
And that
Totally
was
agree with
part of the clustering.
yeah, no, I understand.
And so I don't know. I know what they want in their particular presentation. And by the way, it's better than the first time they came.
Yes.
It is an improved presentation based on what they presented the first time.
I don't think they actually knew the whole picture. Like, I think they just thought, oh, let's subdivide it and sell it, and they didn't understand the environmental consequences, the neighbors' concerns. I think that once they got the big picture, they took the time to evaluate the best way of doing it.
So I'm not saying that what they presented this time was bad. I don't mean to give that impression of an improvement. But I'm saying it's very their application is very complicated. They didn't touch much on soils, for example. And maybe we need to have an independent person, not Aaron and his company, who represents more of the town and so on. An independent outside person look at it from our point of view. I know they didn't let us have a consultant at one point. Some of this stuff is very complicated, and I think we would be best served if we could have an independent outside person with no connection to anything, look at what they presented and give their opinion. Now, years ago, we had Sonia, for example. Much of what we have on mapping today is based on the Sonia study that I believe John Dyson, one of the Dysons,
I think
maybe it was Bob Dyson.
Yeah.
Funded
One
that
of
many years ago. Everything is based on that study. But Sonia is still around. So
I'm not, I haven't gone through the materials, so I don't really know if they're complicated enough yet to warrant a consultant.
Yeah, it's very in-depth, but I haven't had a chance to read it, review it either. But it's pretty straightforward from what I can see.
Because if they are agreed to build outside the wetlands buffer, and we get some sort of ironclad agreement to that, that goes a long way toward.
you have to go outside the wetlands buffer anyway.
But so many of the applications that we see ask for exceptions to that rule, if they are not asking for an exception, and they are protecting scenic view sheds.
Yeah.
It may not be that complicated. We may want to and it's best I want to go through and see if we have questions. And if they can't answer our questions, then maybe we talk more about a consultant. But this seems to be, when we've asked for consultants in the past, we haven't gotten what seems to be a lot of information from the applicant. I mean,
Right.
when we've asked for consultants before, it's been where the applicant hasn't done anything and just says, hi, I'm gonna build in a wetlands buffer.
I mean, this is very intense, this report.
No, I said this was a better report.
And,
you know, I'm
and
not
even the
saying that
mapping,
it did
everything
a
that they're
job.
showing, the wetlands delineation and showing the buffers for the 50 and the 100 foot, it's amazing when you see it on the big map. So it does make a big difference to in the past and from the first withdrawn application.
For example, when she was talking about soil, I know that, I didn't get into it, that you can build on some of these soils if you have above ground filtration systems put in. And a septic system. There's a lot of soils on that map that fit that category. You got 5 acres, you can put in above ground filtration. In fact, there's one on South Road on a 2-acre property or something. They can get away with it.
Right.
But they didn't mention that, for example, the consultant would mention something like that probably, that all of these places would require above ground filtration. Septic system, but all the soil is,
Well, one of the things we could do is comment on what we have so far.
Right.
And you sort of an area saying that, look, the septic, they were saying that they haven't figured out all the septic system. And we can say that, you know, that we reserve the right to comment on the septic if they can't come up with a decent solution.
well, this is what I was saying, and maybe I am not personally that comfortable with being the expert on this. On my pay grade, to be honest.
No, come on. You don't want to be the expert?
You may be okay for you guys, but I feel this is a very complicated property with a lot of different structures.
I mean, I don't think this is that different from the other properties that we're, I mean, we're constantly being asked to opine on in areas where.
That's what we need to have to give a good opinion. We need to be able to say, we want our own personal, because I remember they turned us down, yes.
Yeah, I know.
And we need to have our own personal expert come in on these. It could be a different expert each time. We need to be able to bring in somebody who does this for a living as a professional on certain things. That's what I'm saying. I don't see, we don't use a lot. We used to, I don't know, if you look at where we are on the town budget, I haven't looked at town budgets in a while. We used to have a lot of money in the CAC, in the budget in the town line, and we never used it.
No, the CA, that budget was for a different purpose technically overall.
But I'm saying.
that was for-
That's what I'm saying, they gave money to CAC that they don't give now.
So that money was set aside for the CAC, but it wasn't the CAC that used it. It was for Stephanie's work that she did for the properties.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Years back, Barbara Davis not here.
No, I know, but that.
We had a budget line, and
Correct.
every year nobody used the budget line, so it went back to the town and to the general fund.
I was told that that budget line went to pay Stephanie.
No, I'm not sure I said that.
Well, so are you saying that we should make a request for a budget?
I think they at one time put aside enough CAC money that we could have used that money, for example, to hire our own consultant on occasion.
We can ask. We can ask for the money.
Because now is the time. I mean, August is when they're putting together the budget. So,
Yes.
I mean, that would be something that we would, I guess Leslie,
Leslie left. I don't blame you, Leslie.
but.
She just stepped away.
But that would be, the request would be timely.
So
now.
it was
Actually, I'm just prepping dinner. I didn't leave. So,
we're close.
you know, I guess the reaction, you know, when the CAC asked for someone before, Nan Stoltenberg said she's never worked with a municipality who has a CAC that has their own expert. That's for the planning board to bring in, or the zoning board, was what she said. Because presumably, you know, they would be, you know, making a report that then the CAC would be able to review. So I don't know. That's Because if the town has their expert, then you're gonna have a town expert and then a CAC expert. Who wins if there's a different interpretation? I don't know. That was her reaction, that she's never seen that done and didn't know why.
So not to contradict Nan, but I think, when we did our training, that land use training, was it Westchester that has the CAB that was there? And they told me they have their own consultants.
It might be because Nan works with small municipalities in New York State. I mean, we have 4,500 residents, in her experience, she was, that's what she told me.
But she also had, not to bring up, rehash the past, when I did the seeker training with her, when I first was on the CAC, she told us all in that training that our CAC was the first line of defense for anything going to our planning board. So that's
with the planning board, I guess I don't know, I can certainly ask her again, to me, it's like, what is the best practice, right? And what are other municipalities doing? And if she is the expert who wrote the secret training for New York State, and she's telling me that she's never seen that done, that, the town has an expert, the town retains an expert, was what she was saying. And that report is provided to everybody to opine on and look at. And so to have then two reports from two different bodies who are both presumably, looking for the same information or need to get the same information based on our code. Do you see what I mean? It would almost be like the state of New York is prosecuting a case and they have two different experts for representing the state. I think that's, I don't know. I'm just telling you what she said. And so, I don't know, if there's something else, if you want to ask the Association of Towns, or there's some other point of reference, but I just think it for the town of Washington to be engaging an expert, when we presumably are engaging an expert for the town. Does that make sense? And you all are a board that reviews, applications that affect the environment in the town. So it's a town expert. We'd be engaging the expert on the town's behalf, not on the planning board's behalf or the CAC's behalf. The expert is the expert. Does that make any sense?
It does. The time that we asked for the consultant was, I think, in connection with some of the hospitality zoning code changes, where it was a matter that wasn't going before the planning board. But certainly I understand in a case where you have an application where there really should be only one expert advising the town, all of the boards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would make sense. And the time that we asked for it was when the building that there were planning board review standards being developed for the hospitality zones, when we knew that the hospitality zone was going to be include a wetlands area. And so I think we wanted to, more information about what might be best practices to put into the hospitality zoning code.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I think Nan's perspective was that, which is where we ended up, right? Which was, she's the expert representing the town as an environmental planner. That is her certification. And from her perspective, any application that's going before the town within those zones that's specific, right? It's sort of like what we're dealing with right now, the subdivision. Until we kind of know what they're asking for, it's difficult to, to really do a deep dive on what the environmental impacts would be. So, anyway, that's,
that makes sense.
that was her advice. That was Jim Stout's advice. And, I am no, I'm no code expert. I just play one on TV. So I just, we're just kind of going with their direction on that. But,
Yeah,
but I think what the CAC should do, is that when, when the town does need to engage an expert on behalf of the planning board for a application, if there's certain information that you want, that you think, you should say, we'd like to see this, we'd like to see this. Do you see what I mean? Or ask for more information on the items or the pieces of the application that concern you, whether it's habitat or wetlands or whatever, that might be above and beyond what's required by code.
Leslie, I think we're looking for something in our budget line where it's put in the budget. And in past years, a lot of times, as we said earlier, or I said earlier, we didn't use it, so it went back into the general fund. But if a special occasion arose where we wanted to use somebody who is very specialized in something, we would have that option at least. Because this would be in our budget line to use that money. 99% of the time, it would probably go back into the general fund at the end of the year, which was pretty much the past practice with the CAC years back. And so what happened, I think, is we have less money now in the budget because we've always returned it. So I'd like to see that line put back in a little bit more with the idea if something special came up, we'd have some options to use that money for something.
Well,
Like
Howard, why don't you come and talk to the board? And, I can't speak to what used to happen, but when the budget's being developed, and I don't know, Margaret, how much off the top of my head is he really allocated to the CAC or to planning or to any of the boards, specifically.
I remember it always went back, almost always went back again, and gradually they cut back that money in the first place because we didn't use it.
Right. Right. But I'm saying if you want to, maybe that's why it was taken out as a line item. It just became, we have done that with other things, right?
Kind of what I was told in the beginning.
Yeah.
First took on
And
chair.
if there is a special thing, if circumstances arise, like we have, there's,
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
failure of systems, things break, things we don't anticipate. And so we're able, in a reserve to be able to pull for things that are really special. If there's a circumstance that, we really need a specific expert in a particular thing, that might be the time where you could, come to the board and say, we'd like to do this and we need this.
I'm just thinking 90% of the time or more, it just went back into your general fund for next year. So year after year, you lost nothing. It was a wash. But there might have been 1 or 2 years when we needed something more and have that in the budget for something. And
Yeah.
like, put back.
We will check on that.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll move forward.
So what do we, about this letter, should we talk to Susan Meany to find out, where things stand? Does she even want the letter?
Yeah.
I mean, is it premature? Would it be helpful?
Let me check with her.
And you can send her a draft of the letter.
Yeah.
And I'll forward the letter to you. again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you forward it to me again?
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking in my head, if I can even find it. I looked for it before we
Because I
got
did
here.
have a preliminary conversation with her
Mhm.
about it, and, she said
You
that
said that, yeah.
it would,
Yeah,
it wasn't urgent, but she didn't tell us to not write it.
so I'll reach out and do that, double check.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, the CSC update. Leslie, can you give me an update on the update? Where did we get?
I honestly don't even know where to begin. So we had a meeting, Colleen Howland and Margaret and I, about, where we are with gathering documentation for our bronze certification, which is what we're working on for 2024. In addition to that, we're working on a pilot composting program for the town. I went to Sharon on Friday. Was that Friday? Friday, to look at theirs. there is some grant money that was available, meaning we'd had to apply for it, but that deadline has since passed. So I've reached out to Deirdre Houston and asked if there's anything else we can do about that. But that is something that we need to meet again about to discuss next steps. But Sharon has a really comprehensive program, but they started out with a pilot program, and there are a couple of companies that supply composting bins and other things for municipalities. So that would be an easy thing for us to do. Tomorrow night, we have Cornell coming to present to the town board. The town did an assessment of our disaster preparedness with Cornell last fall. It was actually completed in December of 2023. So this is a follow-up to that. Cornell, just like they've done with our CSC initiatives, to put that and kind of organize that for us so we can see what we've already done, what we're working towards. They are going to assist the town in developing our disaster preparedness plan and our web page for residents, what to do in a disaster. So that's happening tomorrow night. I have a draft resolution, Margaret, which actually I just sent to you for your comments, that I'm going to send to the town board tomorrow morning, because we have to just adopt a resolution as part of the formal procedure with Cornell, just saying that we agree to undertake this work with them, and that we will, post this number of posts on social media about disaster preparedness, and we agree to develop a thorough disaster preparedness section of our website. I think that's it. Oh, we talked to Mike Herzog. We met with Mike. I don't know if this was an update from the last meeting. Mike is looking at Margaret. Mike and I discussed figuring out the extent of the protection overlay of the water that feeds the village's aquifer, and with the NRI, we were able to identify a broader area, or an area that we think is broader than what's already identified as part of that protection zone. So if the area that feeds the aquifer is broader than, which we believe it is, which we're 90% certain that it is, than what's been legislated currently as an area that's protected, we will work to expand that protection overlay and make that part of our code, so that the entire water source for the village is protected, the entire area that feeds it.
Mhm.
And I think that's it. Anything else, Margaret, that I missed on that?
No, I think that you covered.
We'd like to work with the village. The village is open to that. We're kind of talking about how we can do that. And one of the areas we think would be great would be this composting project, in addition to meeting with them to go over what we've done so far, see which areas where we can work together to get more points towards our bronze certification. And that's it.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
My
I have to jump, guys, in just a minute. I'm sorry.
there's not much left on our agenda anyway. Howard, you sent us the update for last night. I'm not gonna read this.
I don't know. Go over these.
Okay.
Is that in my inbox?
Yes, this was in your.
Yeah, this is in our inbox
Oh.
tonight.
Oh, yeah, so
Yeah.
if it has that, yeah, so I got that.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, town board meetings first. And, one question came up with the Cottonwood Inn zone.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was, there were two separate tax parcels in there.
Right.
We have one overlay district for hospitality, and in that one overlay district, there are three designated places for hospitality. There's not three hospitality districts, there's one. And it says you could only have three hospitality uses in that one overlay. So if the Cottonwood people have two separate tax parcels and they want to put hospitality on both of them.
Mm.
And by the way, I think it was Richard Phelps, that said there's only no adaptive reuse on these because they are hospitality to start with. So it's not an adaptive reuse of the building.
Mhm.
So the question is, what happens to the other places then? Since if they use two of them, there's only one left in that overlay to use elsewhere. The town attorney did not offer an opinion on that at this moment, at that meeting. He said it was going to be a very complicated application, and they have highly skilled people on their side as well. So it will be an issue that will be, to use the word, ongoing.
Yeah.
But this was just a workshop sort of a meeting for them. So that's not what it. TPA had nothing that involved us at the moment, for new business. Which brings us to the planning board, the clear subdivision. Okay. Now, there's a section of code in the town that says it's under land subdivision regulations, town of Washington, Dutchess County, New York, year 2008, adopted October 11th, 2007, printed May 5th, 2008. In other words, that's part of our code.
Right.
And it says proper provision shall be made for leaving undeveloped natural areas and corridors to mitigate the advanced environmental impacts of subdivision and to sustain a diversity of natural vegetation and wildlife to protect water resources, agricultural land, and scenic view sheds, and to implement the town's policy of protecting its environmental and cultural resources pursuant to the master plan and the zoning plan. In other words, the application has to deal with that before they draw the subdivision lines up. The subdivision lines will affect that, and once the lines are drawn, the planning board has no further say in the matter. It goes to the building inspector, and the person can do whatever they want on that parcel. But there's no further regulations of this clause that I just read. So the question is, did the application that they submitted do that? Because they already have drawn lines on the application. That was not answered specifically. That was the part that came up at last night's meeting. Does the application that they turned in last night satisfy that clause? And should there first be what we discussed earlier, the ability to bring in an independent person to look at that application and see if it does satisfy that clause before the parcel lines are drawn. That was the gist of that meeting. And cluster subdivision was discussed, by the way, at that meeting. And while I didn't come to a definite conclusion, they did not favor cluster subdivision at that meeting.
Meeting the planning board members?
Planning board meeting. But this is simply a report about what was said at the meeting.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, guys, I have to jump. But Margaret, this is recorded. I'll watch the last of it so I'm able to report on it. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Leslie?
Talk to you soon.
So this is basically, what would happen at the meeting. It has not been resolved
Right.
yet. We, the CAC, have the ability now to make any comments on it that we want at this meeting.
Right.
And I think, we already discussed this with Leslie. We would like, I'm speaking, you can disagree or not, I'm thinking we would like a budget line. That if a special occasion like this came up, which may be very complicated, that we could reach out to somebody on our own to come up with an opinion.
Mhm.
And if we don't use the budget line, it just goes back to the town.
Mhm.
I think this is maybe a good time to ask for that budget line now. They're gonna be doing the budget pretty soon.
I'm going to. Reach out to the town board.
Reach out to town.
Apparently by tomorrow night.
Is that when they're starting the budget hearing?
It's in August, right?
It's an August.
Yeah, they started August. I will communicate this to my liaison who just left us. All right.
So the question comes up here, I think, do we think that we may want to look at the application in our own light, as opposed to taking the town wetlands administrator or AKRF people, relying strictly on them in this particular case. I'll say this again, for me, I think this is a much more complicated application than we normally see, even on larger states. And you're in a state, for example, doesn't have any of these issues.
Mhm.
This one has a lot of issues because of the topography and the land and other things involved on it. And I don't think for us to get a fresh outside opinion. Saying,
I understand.
Ad hoc.
Yeah, yeah.
Special case.
Yeah, yeah. No, we all agree on that.
Okay.
We will ask. We will do what we can.
Okay, so now the issue, if I remember the way budgets go, the budget meetings sometimes run on for a few months.
That's right.
The clear application is heading more for a summation probably at next meeting. If we want somebody to look at that, we have to be timely.
Mhm.
How do we do that?
One of the things we could do is flag the issue and say that,
Mhm.
that there was no, we don't run out of time, we can just note that we ran out of time.
We have to all review this and come up with our own questions and opinions. And as Pam says, then flag it and say, this isn't clear, this isn't spelled, this isn't covered or taken care of in their application. And that we think that it needs this, and if it's not, they don't deem our opinion correct, then we need somebody that we can hire to give this opinion or help us with this opinion.
Well, my question, right in the beginning of these application, is that you're setting a precedent of allowing applicants to draw lines on a map, and then you have to adjust the lines on the map. I think it should be the other way around. That first, they present the environmental issues and then decide how to draw the lines and best deal with them. This is pretty much the same thing they turned for the first time, with some minor modifications and a better application. But it still has basically the same parcel shapes on it. And perhaps if you did it the other way around, I don't know the answer, but perhaps if you did it the other way around and looked at the environmental constraints first, and then you'd have to decide how to draw the parcel lines to best deal with the environmental constraints on the parcel. And you might have got a different set of lines drawn. It allows the planning board.
But nothing has been drawn yet.
Yes, they have that.
But it hasn't been approved.
Those
So-
are suggested lines.
This is just a line. So the planning board is free to take the information that has been provided and draw different lines and suggest different lines. Nobody's saying that these lines have to be agreed to.
What I'm saying, I said this before, maybe it's different for the two of you or everybody else. I would have a great deal of trouble figuring out the best way to draw those lines on the map based on all the environmental information. I think you, well, one person who does that for a living, figure out the best way to draw the lines.
Start walking around with the map.
So really, they did. Everybody. I've only looked at it ever so briefly, but they have clearly delineated important things here. And as you can see, even the wetlands buffers are here. So I don't know if you can get around these lines any different. Like they did say, like this is a stone wall. That's why they're putting that line there, because it's a natural, something that's been there for years and years and years. That made sense.
Do we know why they want five parcels? I mean, maybe they selected 5 because that's what fits the land.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it,
I mean,
part of what Jennifer had said, if you flip this, it looks exactly like that on these parcels over here. And it just might have made sense for them because originally, I do not know what they're doing. Originally, I thought they were keeping a parcel for themselves, but I have no idea. But you know, this one has an existing house. And it has a lot of wetlands you can't do anything with back here, so that's probably why they kept this one a big one. Same kind of concept here, because there's nothing you can really do back here. Like, just keep it open and natural. You know, this is the new building envelope, right? A little bit here, and then there's a building envelope for the one parcel here and the one over there. I'm sure they could see that they could be split into 5, that 5 worked. Because these two are existing. These have houses.
Yeah, they would be pre-existing.
Yeah. So, I mean, if this was your land, would you try to keep it in one piece to sell it, which didn't work, or would you try to break it up so you could sell it? Because I don't know what's going on in the great big world, but what I have seen recently, people don't want large pieces of property anymore. They want smaller, manageable pieces. So that might be their mindset.
With a low tax bill.
And a lower tax bill. Good point. So I get the validity of this personally. So I'm not going to criticize their thought process because I feel like they put a lot into it. I read part of that book. That book is 2 inches thick.
So is this one that I can take?
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. Please take it.
Because the assumption is going to be that I'll be drafting our comments.
Correct. And you need to look at it. It's way easier to read in that form than it is online. That's why I said if you want to take it.
Okay, thank you.
And there's the other pieces to it in these maps. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
And so do we have a deadline for our comments?
Apparently, we need to get it for the next meeting.
For the next planning board or town board? Planning board.
Planning board, and it just has to be a draft.
Okay.
So as many of us can have to review, like we may have to pass this around like a little bit so that.
But we have.
We do have the smaller ones, yeah. But it is very in-depth, the full version.
Mhm.
But it's also, we have it online as well.
Like your setup at home is just me, that's all. I find it very difficult to read some of those maps. So I know I have a good computer on.
No, I know. That's why I loved when I saw this. I was like, oh, thank you, because my poor head just can't sometimes see as clearly as I did with this.
You have a fairly good, you have the complete law parcel map.
Oops, sorry, Heather. She'll have all this, she'll have all of this. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, you'll have all of what Susan gave me to review
okay,
so that you can see it even more clearly.
okay,
And if anyone else on the CAC wishes to, I'll make sure we get that to you
okay,
in the bundle.
okay.
Anyone else on the CAC that might like to review it before we return it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to drive it over to whichever house
Yeah.
wants to see it.
All right, is that good?
I'm going to have this.
You have that. We all have one. Yeah, we all have one and we can pass it along to other people as well. Alrighty, so,
This is new.
yeah, she gave us a couple of new things. We will, is that it for you, Howard, no
Yeah,
otherwise?
that's it. That's my version of what happened at the meeting.
In a nutshell, yeah, alrighty. So we're gonna go to,
The ethics.
ethics of
So-
2024.
Yes, so, each year, under our new ethics code, all town employees and town board members have to acknowledge that they've received a copy of the code of ethics and to the best of your knowledge that you're in compliance with the code,
All right.
which simply means that you have disclosed any conflicts of interest and recused yourself from any decisions relating to that.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that we've got a good focus on ethics here. They're always
Oh, yeah,
conscious
yeah.
of potential conflicts.
And we can go ahead and do this all right now, right?
Yes, but if you have any questions that you want to speak to me about offline, please.
All right.
So I am going to sign as well. And if you can keep the copy of the code of ethics and hand me the,
Mhm. I know that, yeah,
yeah,
we gotta do
Yes.
this, the top sheet, we'll,
give that to me. 8-7. Okay, thank you so much.
feel like I've accomplished something today.
And we have, I'll bring this to the next meeting so that Shannon and David can sign
Can
as
do
well.
theirs as well, perfect.
It's an annual certification, so it just needs to get done by the end of the year.
Yeah, all right, well, thank you. The other thing on new business since I've been away, we've not been able to discuss it up until this point. We wanted to look into having an official recording secretary again. But I don't guess we're really at a place that we can make that decision without Shannon being here, and she told me I could put her on anything.
Okay.
That'll teach her. So I just don't know what we should do with our recording secretary. So I'll probably table that till our next meeting.
Yeah.
Get a new.
That could be. So we'll just table it until the next meeting, but since we're so short of people.
Yes, it's with Shannon and David aren't here.
That's not a possibility. Dan is pretty good at this stuff, and she could help David with it. And David could officially
Be the,
be the
I mean, that was done in the past.
yeah,
So
Well,
that's,
Dan didn't do the work in the past, David did.
oh,
Dan is with him.
yeah, yep. And again, this will be brought back up at our next meeting when we're all here, hopefully.
Are we still on Zoom, by the way?
Of course, we're still on Zoom. We're still having a meeting.
So this is my comment on Zoom.
So when they listen,
I know that Dan is very good at this stuff, and could be an advocate. David would be the official person and
sure,
help,
that's a very good suggestion, Howard.
much the way my wife was very.
Oh, okay.
okay.
So we're not gonna have any
I-
political
no.
conversations.
Can't have, this is gonna be on Zoom, I go to physical therapy most, and you can't talk politics.
Oh, right. I prefer not to talk about politics at the moment at all.
That was just a joke.
It is a joke. It was very funny, Howard. I enjoyed that.
Motion to adjourn?
But any open comments, public comments, any questions, concerns? Motion to
Motion to adjourn.
second,
Second.
all in
All
favor?
in favor?
We're off.